Welcome to Fight Kid TV, man. Coming to you with a new video today about the man who stepped harder than Martin Luther King, Robert F. Williams. Let's get into it.
Nacho, 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 nacho,
But this success came at a price. The incident drew the attention of not just local authorities, but the FBI. Robert's insurance company canceled his car insurance, citing the frequent attacks on his vehicle. Even some of his allies began to worry that his methods might provoke even more violent retaliation. While Robert's armed defense strategy had gained the black community some measure of protection, the deeper rot of racial injustice in Monroe was about to be exposed through the case of two young boys. It started innocently enough in October 1958. A group of children, both black and white, were playing together in Monroe, the kind of scene that would raise no eyebrows in most places. During their game, a white girl gave two black boys, 9-year-old James Thompson and 7-year-old David Simpson, an innocent peck on the cheek. What happened next would expose the brutal reality of Southern justice. The white girl's mother, upon hearing about the kiss, became enraged. Within hours, police dragged the two elementary school boys from their homes. They were charged with assault for receiving a kiss in a children's game. Let me remind you, the white girl is the one who gave the kiss. The local courts showed no mercy. These children, one just 7 years old, the other 9, were sentenced to reform school until they turned 21. In other words, a childhood game had earned them a 14-year sentence. The boys were beaten, and their parents weren't allowed to visit them for weeks. For Robert, this case crystallized everything wrong with the system. Guns could protect against the Klan, but what about the legal system itself? This time, he decided to fight fire with publicity. Robert launched a media campaign that would make Monroe front-page news across the globe. He contacted newspapers worldwide. He organized protests. He made sure everyone knew about two little boys torn from their families, beaten, and imprisoned, all for a childhood kiss. The international response was overwhelming. Civil rights activists across America rallied to the cause. European newspapers ran scathing editorials. Even Eleanor Roosevelt, the former First Lady, spoke out against this travesty of justice. Under this intense global pressure, North Carolina's governor was forced to act. The boys were finally released and pardoned, but the state never apologized for its actions, and the incident revealed to the world the brutal injustice that black citizens of Monroe faced daily. The kissing case had exposed Monroe's racial injustice to the world, but it had also revealed something else: the power of Robert's increasingly militant approach to civil rights. Where traditional NAACP leaders might have quietly filed appeals, Robert had turned a local injustice into international news. For the NAACP's national leadership, this was the final straw. Robert's armed resistance against the Klan had already made them nervous. Now his aggressive media campaign and unapologetic rhetoric were drawing attention they didn't want. By 1959, the tension between Robert's militant approach and the NAACP's traditional strategy would reach a breaking point. A confrontation was coming that would force the entire civil rights movement to grapple with a crucial question. In the face of violent oppression, was nonviolence the only acceptable response? By 1959, Robert's confrontational approach had put him on a collision course with the NAACP's national leadership. When he publicly responded to a Monroe court's decision to acquit two white men of raping a pregnant black woman, his words would ignite a firestorm. Standing on the courthouse steps, Robert declared that if the courts wouldn't protect black citizens, they would have to protect themselves. The NAACP leadership, committed to their nonviolent approach, suspended him from his position. But Robert wasn't done. If anything, the split from the NAACP freed him to pursue even more militant strategies. Through 1960 and early 1961, the tensions in Monroe continued to simmer. By 1961, the law was clear, at least on paper. The Supreme Court had ruled segregation on interstate buses and terminals unconstitutional, first with Morgan versus Virginia in 1946, and again with Boynton versus Virginia in 1960. But across the American South, These federal rulings meant nothing without enforcement. In May 1961, an interracial group of activists decided to test these laws themselves. They called themselves the Freedom Riders, and their mission was deceptively simple: travel.
Anybody who remember the Boondocks, oh my goodness, this is what they were talking about in the Boondocks. I always knew that this was a real life, off of real life. That this episode I'm talking about, I'm talking about with the Freeman, the granddad, Mr. Freeman. All right, Mr. Freeman. This episode, I never do my research on that episode, but I knew how much detail was in the episode. I knew this was a real event. You know what I'm saying? And this is it right here. This is what they was talking about. Boondocks is nothing to play with, man. I'm tagging Boondocks in this because y'all did your stuff, man.
On interstate buses through the South, challenging the segregation that the Supreme Court had already declared illegal. The response was swift and brutal. In Anniston and Birmingham, Alabama, the Freedom Riders faced devastating violence. As law enforcement stood by watching, white mobs attacked the riders with shocking brutality. In Anniston, their bus was firebombed. In Birmingham, they were beaten as police conveniently disappeared for the first 15 minutes of the assault. Robert and MLK had long differed on tactics. While King preached nonviolence, Robert argued that triumph depended on the adversary. King acknowledged the advantages of armed self-defense, but
Alright, I'm gonna let y'all know something about Martin Luther King, okay? Martin Luther King was part of the Masonic agenda. He was funded by the people of the worked for the Supreme Court and all that type of stuff because he had the voice to make everybody don't pick up guns and stuff like that. So, yes, the man had a dream, but it wasn't his dream. Okay, this is nothing to be sad about. This is just the truth. Okay, I don't care how you look at the man or whoop the wop. Just know that he was controlled. That's it. I'm sorry to say it. What's up?
maintained that nonviolence demanded greater self-control and courage. In May 1961, as Freedom Riders faced brutal violence across the South, Robert took a bold step. He sent King a direct telegram, challenging him to do more than lead from afar. No sincere leader asks his followers to make sacrifices that he himself will not endure. You are a phony. If you lack the courage, remove yourself from the vanguard. Now is the time for true leaders to take to the field of battle. If leaders believed in nonviolent resistance, they should physically participate with their fellow protesters on the front lines. 2 months later, when the Freedom Riders finally reached Monroe, they would find themselves caught between these two.
So, bro, basically called out Martin Luther himself, right? Said, if you really like that and you non-violent, well, at least be in the front line of a non-violent march. And I'm like, okay. I'm with bro.
Philosophies: nonviolent resistance and armed self-defense. And soon, they would need both. Drawing on his military experience and the discipline of the Black Armed Guard, Robert prepared for the riders' arrival. The stakes were clear. Monroe's clan, over 7,000 strong in a town of just 12,000, had promised violence. The Freedom Riders came to Monroe determined to demonstrate the effectiveness of civil disobedience and challenge segregation laws, but they found something unprecedented: a Black community ready not just to support them, but to defend them. For 2 weeks, the protests continued, but as hostile white observers gathered, the situation grew increasingly tense. The riders, recognizing the danger, called for the aid of the Black Armed Guard. Then, on August 27th, violence erupted. White supremacist mobs attacked the riders and caused chaos in the local neighborhood. In the midst of this
I ain't gonna lie, it look like he got blood right there, but that look like might be his own blood. But bro, right here, from this side, from the side of his face right here, don't look like he's cut. I can't see by his ear. So what I'm trying to ingest is, I don't know. I wish this man could let us know today what happened in this picture. You feel me? You know what I'm saying?
mobs attacked the riders and caused chaos in the local neighborhood. In the midst of this turmoil, a white couple, driving into the area, found themselves caught in the chaos. What happened next would change everything. Robert, seeing the couple in danger, rescued them and brought them to his house for safety. But what he saw as an act of humanity, local authorities would twist into something far more sinister. What began as a Freedom Ride demonstration in Monroe quickly spiraled into chaos on August 27, 1961, as violence erupted throughout the local neighborhood. A white couple, Bruce and
Y'all want a definition of
as violence erupted
Hold up.
into chaos on
Hold up. This is a meat suit right here. I can look in this man's eyes right here. This is a meat suit. This man don't do nothing. This nigga do nothing with you. All he do is a cycle of eating, shitting, and just doing what he was told. I can see it in his eyes. Him too. I can kind of see it. I can't really see, but right here, this right there. That's all I gotta see. Eating shit. Cause look at that grit right there. Could have did more with your life, boy. But you scared out your mind, out your top, out your top. This is regular for y'all.
August 27th. A white couple, Bruce and Mabel Stegall, drove their car into the midst of the turmoil. In a moment that would test Robert's principles, he faced a crucial choice. The crowd had recognized the Stegall's car, the same vehicle that had recently displayed hostile segregationist messages. But rather than allow any harm to come to them, Robert did something that defied the mob's expectations. He brought the couple into his home for protection. With the Stegalls safely inside, Robert tried to use this moment to help others in danger. He called Police Chief A.A. Monroe, attempting to negotiate medical care for Freedom Riders who had been jailed and denied treatment. The response from Chief Monroe chilled Robert to the bone. "You'll be hanging from the courthouse square in 30 minutes. This wasn't just a threat. In Monroe, it was a real possibility. White police authorities were already working to frame Robert's protection of the Steggalls as a kidnapping. Despite the fact that the couple never reported any abduction after leaving his house, the propaganda was already being made. Within hours, the situation had transformed. This wasn't just another confrontation with local.
See, as a kid, I was set up like this. Okay, I was set up like this in Texas, in Austin, Texas. I was set up like this. I had police after me. I had police trying to lock me up. I had police probably would have probably shot my ass, but like back then, if you would have killed killing like back then in that area, like where I was at, killing a black kid is like man, like I don't know, man, like it wasn't like today they getting away with like a motherfucker, but like cause they got guns on them and stuff, but it's like man, you kill a black kid back then, it's like it's a 70% chance that nigga was innocent. You get what I'm saying? Real shit, because in the area it was like man, these are kids. It's all type of kid, Asian, you know what I mean, like Indian, all type of Mexican, Pakistan. It don't matter, man. Mayan, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? What it was, Samoan. Like I'm being dead serious. These kids, if they are what they are, these kids most likely ain't bad. Like they look bad, but they ain't bad. And like you shoot one of them, that's your ass, bro. Cause his parents are probably I ain't gonna let that slide where we at. So I feel like since they really couldn't shoot me, I feel like they were trying to lock me up, all type of shit. You know what I'm saying? And by the tactics that he's let me show y'all.
Within hours, the situation had transformed. This wasn't just another.
I'm gonna show y'all.
Never reported any of the Steggalls.
You see how he has a Vice FBI wanted poster? Like, yeah, I was like that. Like, they had all type of shit on me. Like, it was crazy, man. And I was just laughing, like, what the world? Like this. I was just like this. Like, me hearing about this man makes me feel like this goes on for generations. It's always gonna be somebody just like just going through this and on point. You feel me? And just know like everything is against them, but the route they're going is the right thing to do.
Propaganda was already being made. Within hours, the situation had transformed. This wasn't just another confrontation with local authorities. The FBI issued a warrant in Charlotte, charging Robert with kidnapping, despite the fact that the Stegalls never reported any abduction after leaving his house. Facing false kidnapping charges and the very real threat of violence, Robert and his wife Mabel were forced to make an impossible decision. They fled Monroe, beginning a journey that would take them first to Cuba by way of Canada and Mexico. But exile didn't silence Robert. It amplified his voice. In Cuba, with Fidel Castro's approval and government assistance, he established Radio Free Dixie in 1962. This groundbreaking program, which aired in the US and Canada, combined jazz and blues with sharp commentary on the American government. That same year, Robert published his seminal work, Negroes with Guns. The book detailed his experiences with violent racism and laid out his fundamental disagreement with the nonviolent wing of the civil rights movement. His words would later profoundly influence Huey P. Newton, founder of the Black Panther Party. After 5 years in Cuba, Robert's journey continued. He traveled throughout Asia and Africa, speaking out against racism, colonialism, and the Vietnam War. In Vietnam, he even met with revolutionary leader Ho Chi Minh. From 1966 to 1969, Robert and his family lived in China, where he continued to publish his newsletter, The Crusader. His presence there deepened the connection between the Communist Party of China and the African-American revolutionary movement. In a historic moment, he received the honor of meeting with Mao Zedong, who issued statements supporting the African
Dude was making moves. Hey, man. Bro? I'm like, I don't know nothing about dude to the day, and I am very, very impressed because, like, how I would imagine myself when I'm doing, right? I'm just now at the age I'm at, right? I've been trying to do, you know what I'm talking about? I've been trying to, you hear me? But now that I'm at the level I'm in the world today I'm in, right? Then I'm get to hear about these people in the past was moving in the exact same way I was trying to move, right? It just proved to me that, man, you going down the right path, you can't not stop. You know what I'm saying? Like, real, this is so real to me. Like, this I feel like I don't care if this video gets 2 views. This video needs to be posted for myself, man. For I could come back and look at this for myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, man.
American struggle against discrimination. By late 1969, Robert and Mabel returned to the United States, settling in Michigan. The kidnapping charges still loomed, but Michigan's Governor William G. Milliken refused to honor North Carolina's extradition request, noting that Robert couldn't receive a fair trial there. The legal shadow wouldn't lift until 1975, when Robert was finally able to face the charges. In January 1976, nearly 15 years after he fled Monroe, North Carolina prosecutors dismissed all charges against him, acknowledging their main witness was too weak to appear in court. Robert's story wasn't just about one man's fight for justice. It was about challenging the very framework of how civil rights could be won. At a time when nonviolence was considered the only acceptable path, he dared to argue for the fundamental right of self-defense. His influence would ripple through generations of civil rights activists, reshaping the movement in ways that would be felt long after his death in 1996. At his funeral, Rosa Parks delivered the eulogy, praising him for his courage and for his commitment to freedom. Her words captured what many had come to understand, that Robert F. Williams had forced America to confront difficult questions about resistance, self-defense, and the true meaning of civil rights. While Dr. King preached turning the other cheek, Robert showed there was another way. Not better, not worse, just different. A Marine veteran who understood that sometimes the only language oppressors understand is the language of force. He proved that armed resistance wasn't just about guns. It was about dignity, about standing up straight in a world trying to keep you on your knees.